not to toot my own horn, and I'm not doing this to brag. I'm just doing this to like let you guys know, and let people know that don't know this side of me or don't know this part of me. Is like I am, dude. I'm a survivalist. I have been since I really don't know when. I don't know, since I started doing it on my own. Like, I think I really started in like 2013 or 2014. The first time I ever moved out to Colorado. I used to have my sisters drop me off when I lived with them. Every weekend I would have them drop me off in Manitou Springs, and I would just hike for a mile or two, and then like it would be the weekend, right? It would be a night or 2 nights sometimes that I would just, for the weekend, what I would do, instead of going out to a bar or going out to a club, I would go out into the mountains and just camp by myself, sometimes with a firearm and sometimes without it. Most of the time it was without a firearm. I just had like a knife and a hatchet. That was my only way of, like, I guess you could call it self-protection. And I would have a backpack and I would hike a mile or two. And, sometimes maybe like 3 or 4 miles. That's probably like solo wise, that's probably as far as I ever hiked on my own to go camp and find a camp spot and set up. But like I'm not, this is not new to me. This is something that I have, even as a child, like I grew up on, excuse the train, there's a train like a mile away. Even as a kid, I grew up with my dad and my uncles owning land and having access to our own property, and like even like a little bit of farming here and there. So I'm not don't get me wrong, I am not by any means a professional, and I don't share any of my experience for people to guide people per se, but I have enough experience that I can teach a little bit of what I know and help people maybe not be as so helpless in the wilderness and in bushcraft, the term or the subject of bushcraft. Be not so clueless, because I know enough to keep me alive. I know enough to our fire's dying, so I don't have much light, so we need to add some more sticks to it. I know enough to keep me warm. I know enough to keep me alive. I know enough to hunt and gather and look out for poisonous things like that, especially where I am from, which is Oklahoma. It's different here in Colorado. We have different vegetation. We have different poisons, different species even. So I don't know everything. I don't know everything. So just let me be clear in that sense, is I don't know everything. I'm still learning myself. But I know that if I had to not be in a house and I had no electricity and I was in the wilderness, I know that I could survive. I don't know how long. I don't know how long, because I've never done it more than probably, I think the longest I've ever like camped out with like like a backpack's worth of stuff is probably like 5 days, 4 or 5 days, and then like 3 or 4 nights. You know what I mean? So this is not something that I'm advocating that I can live on for months and months and months at a time, and I would clearly need some type of crutches, but I know for a fact that if like I had to, I'd be all right. I could make do. I don't eat fish. I don't like fish, but I know for a fact that if I was starving, I would have zero problems with eating some fish. I know that. Because if you're hungry, you're gonna eat anything. And if I'm by a river or any source of water where there is a surmountable amount of fish coming through, that I would probably result to eating them, just like I would with most birds. Birds are much, without a firearm, of course, much harder to kill or dismantle. So I think I would definitely result to fish, but I would rather eat birds. I know out here, right in this particular spot that I'm at, there are some turkeys. I spotted 3 of them, if you tell from the last time. So I'll probably have to camp out and stake them out. But I would need like at least a bow or a crossbow to be able to get them. But I have no doubt in my mind that if I had those tools, that I wouldn't be able to get some of those. And quail too, and that's something that I would highly advise, especially in like higher climate, drier climate conditions. Somebody get is not only chickens, because in too hot of conditions, your chickens will die. And that's why quail, they tend to be in areas that are 80 to 90 degrees all the time, whereas like chickens, like even 100 degrees at max, they will not survive in 90 to 100 degree weather. 80 degree regularly maybe, but because of their cooler temperatures at night, they could probably survive. And if you had some like actual like coop made for them that keeps them cool and high whenever they need it, then yes, definitely. But some people don't have those means, especially if you live in the places like the desert. Chickens aren't really an ideal species to have and maintain, whereas quail are a little bit more, but still like 90 and 100 degrees, you really like, they need someplace cooler to go. And that's why, like in Arizona, where quail are prevalent, the nights of Arizona get really, really cool, like sometimes down to like 40 degrees. And so it is okay for them. But in areas where it doesn't get that cool, it's not ideal for those types of species. So I'm very familiar with different types of birds and even fish, for like from a survivalist standpoint. I'm not a fisherman, I'm not a hunter, but I have enough experience just surviving for a couple of nights and seeing different species around and different temperatures and conditions, that I have a pretty good understanding of how they can survive and where they can survive or flourish. And so I'm not really worried about it here. If I was up in the mountains where like the warmest temperatures were 40 or 50 degrees or 60 degrees, and then the coldest temperatures were 10 and below 10, it would be different. But here where I'm at, it's not that way. So I'm pretty confident of where I stand and as far as survival in certain temperatures. But extreme cold temperatures, I don't have a lot of experience with. I really don't. I have a little bit because of hiking, but I've only probably, in cold temperatures, I've probably only done like, let's say 2 handfuls worth of overnight, and just being like 1 night and 2 days of staying, and like the minimum temperatures of like maybe 20 degrees, and then the maximum being like 45 or 50 degrees. So being in Alaska would be way different, but I would love the challenge and I would appreciate it. And someday I am going to go there and do this. Even if it's just for a night or two or a week or something like that. Like, I plan on definitely going to Alaska for a couple weeks and, like, trying the bushcraft there. You know? I would love that.